not your fault. If she had cooked, if she had cleaned, if she had taken care of you, you wouldn't have cheated. It just seems like so often women end up carrying the baggage for the infidelity, because not only are you the person that has to stay or chooses to stay, as you said, but you also have to carry the emotional baggage of what just happened to you. Do you see that happen quite often?
You see that a lot, because there's always a default, Jason, that we look at, that we always are finding something wrong with us.
Sure.
So as soon as we make 2 or 3 steps forward, as soon as something comes up, it's going back to that default. Well, something is wrong with us, and you're constantly building yourself back up.
Right.
It really, like I said, boils down to it isn't, and I keep referring back to a marriage situation, because those were grounds set, and once you enter into that type of relationship, there's a ground that's set and a mindset that's in it for the long haul.
Sure.
So a lot of times what happens with a lot of ladies is that you have to build up their self-esteem and build up who they are. There's a lot of pressure for women to look a certain way, to act a certain way. Mm-hmm. And even though we have the whole women's rights society movement and all that
Sure.
type of things, but it's still a kind of protocol on how we are supposed to behave, how are we supposed to look, mm-hmm. In that type of aspect. So number one is just building her back up as a person, and that she's beautiful in her own right and way.
Okay, excuse for interrupting, but
Sure.
how would you go about, all right, because the easy thing, I have a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
my 5-year-old daughter, Jada, and love her to death. Right now, I'm big on letting her know how beautiful she is, how wonderful she is, because she is.
Yeah.
Right? She's my daughter.
Yeah.
Right? And Jada, if you're watching, you're beautiful, baby. I love you. But I know that society is eventually going to creep in, and it's going to start to beat her down, because she might not look like the magazine. She
Mm-hmm.
might not look like, say, Beyonce or whoever is the popular person
Sure.
right now. So how would you go about building? How do you go about building a woman up, especially a woman who's been torn down?
Yeah. It's hard. It's one of those hard things to do. But number one, I congratulate you for telling your daughter that every day.
Yeah, thank
And we
you.
need more fathers to tell their daughters that they are beautiful, because honestly, Jason, that's where the foundation starts,
Mhm.
right there. My field is generally construction,
Sure.
so you know that if you don't lay that foundation down correctly, if you have a jilted or slanted in some kind of way, the building's going to fall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the same thing in this instance. When you are starting with your little girls from day one, telling them that they're beautiful, when things in society start saying things, they can always default back
Right.
to what Dad said. What did Dad tell me? Dad told me that I was beautiful. Okay, so a lot of times we don't have young ladies that are told that by their fathers.
Mhm.
Number one, you have to make it in your mind that you are here for purpose and here for reason.
Okay.
Okay, and you have to set with yourself that, you know what, I'm going to change. I choose to believe.
Sure.
I choose within myself to believe that yes, I am beautiful, or yes, I do have purpose. That's number one,
Mhm.
and that's kind of the first step that I work with people on, is that you have to decide whether you want to choose or believe
Okay.
that this is what you are, and if so, then we can move forward, moving steps.
Sure.
That's number one step.
But do you often find, because I know that when I've worked with people, what I found is people have a very good idea of where they would like to be and who they would like to be. But it just seems like there are all these emotional hurdles that they have to overcome, things that they might not have even been aware of.
Sure.
How do you help somebody get over those emotional hurdles?
You have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to talk about things, because you may be hurting about some things and you don't even realize, like you said, that you realize, but the first thing to do is talk about it so that these emotions come out.
Okay.
They have to be exposed in order to know that they even exist.
Sure.
And that's the first step of healing, is to understand where the hurt is, even with the guy cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something that's missing in his life to even cause him to do that. It may not necessarily even be her.
Absolutely.
It could be something from childhood. And so both parties have to really sit down and decipher what is really the issue with me. What's really bothering me?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about what I was told growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and now what I tell my sons. In case you don't know, I have 4 wonderful children, 3 boys. Mitchell, who's 17, Trevor, who's 13. I keep wanting to call him 12. Jada, who's 5, and my son Jaden, who's 1. And for those folks who are saying I was just trying to crib off Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, as far as naming one Jada and the other one Jaden, you're right, I was, right? But it's so interesting because when I think about what my father shared with me, and I had a great father, but what he shared with me was, don't get too serious too fast. Date, explore, see as many women as you possibly can so that you eventually get to the point where you know what you want, right? Well, here's what's so messed up about that. Because you date, you experience, you have sex, you do whatever you might do within a relationship, right? And then all of a sudden, one day you look up and you're like, all right, everyone's telling me now I need to get married. So it's almost like it creates this within the mind of a male, it almost creates this schizophrenic state. Because on one hand, it's don't have any responsibilities other than protecting yourself when you're in bed with somebody.
Sure.
Then all of a sudden they say, well, now that you've hit 30, it's time to be responsible. And I'm seeing that so often in our young men, and especially when I think about what I share with my sons, right? I share with my sons how important it is to do exactly what my father said. Explore, have fun. But then my daughter comes home the other day, and she says, my daughter who's 5, and Jada, you broke my heart when you said this, Daddy, I'm in love with Mikey. I think I want to marry Mikey. And the first thing I said was, Jada, you're not ready? You're only 5? Don't date until you get 30. You got to save yourself.
Right.
It just seems like what women are taught is so vastly different than what men are taught.
It is.
So how do we overcome that? Does that sort of make sense?
I totally agree, Jason. But we also have to look at the fact that there needs to be a standard that's the same across
Right.
the board.
I like that.
We've changed. We have a standard for women, girls, standard for guys, and it shouldn't be as such if there's any type of relationship to move forward. The same message needs to be given across the board.
Right.
But then it comes into the other issues that you deal with women. You tell a young lady to date, and then people start thinking differently of her.
You remember, and I know I'm dating myself when I say this, but you remember the old Kool Moe Dee song? What was it? I'm a player, whatever it's called.
Right.
A guy with 100 girls is a hero. A girl with 100 guys is a zero.
Yeah.
Don't blame me because society made the rules,
Exactly.
but they made it for me. Damn, I think I just rapped. Right?
Right.
But I do agree with you. And Carmen, in fact, gave me that eye, kind of like there needs to be a standard. So, Jason, whatever you're telling your daughter, you better be telling your sons as well. Carmen, how do you deal with, okay, so you've dealt with quite a few women who, in the aftermath of having this infidelity, or let's get even away from the infidelity, they just had a problematic relationship. And they've had a series of problematic relationships. How do you rebuild them? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How do you deal with those issues?
When you have someone with problematic relationships all the time, the question begins to, you have to ask, is it really the people in the relationship that you're dealing with, or is it really you?
Wow. Okay.
Okay? Because if there is any type of repetitiveness in these relationships that you're having, you have to start focusing on what are you doing wrong. Because when you do that, what you're going to do is find there's a missing piece in the link of fulfilling who you are. Most people that are getting into relationships are looking for love or looking for someone to fulfill something in their life.
Sure.
And the first thing that people have to do and learn to do is fulfill who they are themselves first.
But can I challenge that, Carmen?
Sure.
Because we don't exactly live in a society that's big on introspection, right? I mean, the first thing that we often tell people is you need to go within. You need to experience yourself, right? You need to find yourself. But we have a society that's constantly throwing things at you. So why should I experience myself, right? When I'm out here.
You only have you.
Wow.
You only have you. When it's all said and done and you're kicked to the curb, who's really there for you?
You.
You. So you owe it to yourself to find out who you are. Know what you like. Do things that you like to do. And then try to meet somebody. That person should never be coming to make you whole.
Right.
You need to be already whole meeting someone.
Sure.
And that goes for both men and women. And Jason, if you notice, I mean, that's part of the problems and issues that we're having now. That's why we have all these problematic relationships that are going on is the fact that we're not taking time to find. I mean, I'm 35 years old. I'm not married. I don't have any children. But what I've learned throughout the time, even other relationships that I've had, I've learned that I need to take care of Carmen first.
Right.
You know, because nobody else, even at this day and age, is going to take care of me the way I can. You know, and I'm not saying that to be the whole independent women type of thing. It's not that. It's just that I'm looking to be whole so that whenever I meet that person, I'm whole for them.
I like that.
If I come in the relationship with a bunch of issues, problems, he's going to probably run. You know, or find way. If he's stuck in the relationship with me, he's going to find ways to do or find somebody else to be with, to seek pleasure with, or what have you.
Sure.
When he needs to be with me. So it's my responsibility for whoever it is that I'm dating to become or to come whole, or to always strive for that.
See, I like that. I'm going to say this, that I've been married for 6 years. Wonderful wife, Danette, love her dearly. I thought that I was whole going into that relationship. And it probably wasn't until 2 months in that I realized that we come in with so much hurt and so much baggage from past relationships. And I'm not just talking about past relationships with ex-girlfriends, or say in your case, ex-boyfriends.
Right.
Just things that you've experienced in life.
Exactly.
Whether they were hurts with friends, whether they were people who might have abused you, right? And my experience was I had my wife who was constantly telling me, I love you, but I was only receiving maybe 75% of that.
Right.
Because that other 25% of me, and yes, I do quantify myself, right? But that other 25% of me was filtering it out saying, does she really mean it? Because I remember what happened when girlfriend X said that, and look what she did to me, right? Or I remember when my close friend said that to me, but look what he did to me.
Right.
It just seems like that in our relationships, then we don't take enough time to really try to figure out who I am, right? To get whole, as you talked about. We're operating out of this hurt perspective. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes absolute sense. And we find ourselves in these relationships when someone does mess up or betray you, we lose trust. So we carry that into the next relationship.
Right.
You know, and as soon as there's something that someone does, or they look at you a certain way, or they pick up something a certain way, it reminds you, defaults you back to the relationship that you have had with someone else.
Right.
So we always have this trust factor when we are going into relationships, that we don't really trust people wholeheartedly. But even when we, like you said, we're kind of going back to finding out about someone cheating on you.
Right.
If you do decide to leave that relationship, it is so imperative that you get yourself whole.
Right.
Because if not, you're going to carry that same baggage into the next relationship and look for those issues.
That same hurt just goes
Exactly.
and it goes and it goes.
Exactly.
And I'm going to tell you this right now, from the male perspective. We spend a lot of time, and I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to open this up to conversation, and for any of you men who are out there saying that I'm giving up on the male code, man, I'm married. So there is no more male code. I turned in my male card a long time ago, my man card. We spend a lot of time talking about the fact that there are so many angry women. And with all due respect, so many angry black women. But I'm not sure that we spend enough time, or that we're willing and courageous enough as men to spend enough time talking about why, or asking the big question, why are people angry? Because it's been my experience that if I meet somebody who's angry, man, they're hurting. Anger is nothing more than calcified hurt.
Yeah.
And you can only experience hurt after hurt after hurt before anger becomes that default.
Yes.
Right? It becomes that default protection from life, from people who might have wronged you, from people who might have hurt you. How do you help people to, say, overcome that anger? First, identify the anger, and identify the hurt, and then move forward.
And that's basically number one. identifying the hurt, because it could be from something that their father, their mother did back in the day.
Right.
So they're carrying this into, like we said, into that relationship as a whole.